had asked what brought about the name of the book, Buddhist Boot Camp. And what made it possible is every time I watched the movie Buddhist Boot Camp, every time I watched the movie Fight Club, I thought to myself, this is Buddhist Boot Camp. And that's because Fight Club, though I'm not recommending you go out and watch it, or that it is extremely violent and graphic. The movie Fight Club depicts all the internal struggle within us as two different people actually beating each other up. And so it really spoke to me, and especially at the time when I was working in the corporate world. And if you listen to Tyler Durden, portrayed by Brad Pitt, he often tells you that you're not your job, you know how much money you have in the bank. And ultimately, Brad Pitt plays a Zen master of sorts. And every time I watched Fight Club, I thought to myself, this is Buddhist Boot Camp. And a friend of mine was the one who suggested that I make my journal public, my emails to my friends, my letters, my diary entries. And when I thought about giving my life a name, Buddhist Boot Camp seemed to be like a really good fit. Speaking of Fight Club, actually, I received this in the mail from Anne LeClaire. Thank you so much for writing to me. And she is an artist who made this wonderful piece from Fight Club. And it says, "It's only after we have lost everything that we are free to do anything." And I think that's a very strong part of Fight Club and Buddhism. It's about letting go. It's about losing everything and it's not just the tangible stuff, like when he blows up his window and gets rid of his stuff. It's about letting go of our fears, of our insecurities, about all the stuff that's holding us back from being the best version of ourselves there can be. And so if you do decide to watch it, word of caution, it is extremely graphic and violent. It's also available as a book. If you go to BuddhistBootCamp.com, there's a list of recommended books, and there's a link right there to Fight Club, which I strongly recommend. And I think before the questions get buried, I will move on. When am I coming back to Ventura? I don't know. After my last meetup in Ventura, I went on a book tour across Australia and then went to New Zealand, Hawaii, Chicago, and Seattle. And that pretty much wrapped up about 2.5 years of book tour across the US, the UK, etc. And to be honest, it was quite exhausting. It was wonderful. It was an incredible experience, and I've met a lot of great people. And I'm so dedicated to spreading the message, but it was very exhausting. And so when I came back from New Zealand specifically, I realized that I have two options. I can either live in the city and try as often as I can to get away and go to the mountains, or I can live in the mountains and, if need be, go to the city. And I opted for that, and this cabin became available in Lone Pine. It's by Mount Whitney in the East Sierras, and it's just stunning. And I'm here working on the next book without a lot of the distraction and the stimuli. So I don't know when I'll be coming back to Ventura, but this is the reason for this broadcast, is to be able to meet with not just people in Camarillo or Ventura or Los Angeles or Sydney, but with everyone all at once. And I saw someone that said that they're from Bakersfield, and there's people here from all over the world, and this is quite wonderful. So thank you. Will I be visiting the UK? I did a book tour across the UK. I was there for about a month, and it was wonderful. And I've made some good friends there as well. So I don't doubt that the possibility exists for another tour with the next book. I don't know. It's all up in the air. I have no answers for the future. So I will try to answer what's true for me in this moment, and leave the future for when we get there. Someone asked if it's possible to follow Buddhism without believing in reincarnation. Uh, that's an interesting question. I believe Buddhism is not so much a religion. There are no shoulds. There's no such thing as a bad Buddhist. It's an invitation. There are no commandments. There are ways of being. I think the concept of reincarnation, just like the concept of heaven or hell, are in place as incentive for us in a way to do good. And maybe that's a psychological approach to encourage us to do good, because then we'll be rewarded for it, whether it be by being reincarnated as something wonderful as opposed to something quote unquote less than. I am not personally convinced that reincarnation is real, especially not in the sense of, you know, if I do good, I'm going to come back as a higher form of being, and if I do bad, I'll come back as a step lower. But I don't think that has anything to do with me being able to lead a life in the form and fashion that the Buddha invited us to lead. It's not necessary for me to believe in heaven or hell in order for me to believe in God. I don't need a reason to help people. I don't think any of us do. And so, to answer your question in as broad a terms as possible, I do believe that it's very, very possible to be the best version of yourself there is without necessarily having to believe in any one thing. The questions are getting buried here, so I'm going to try to move up a little bit. Thank you guys for being patient. A general's typical day in the life of Timber. I do invite everyone quite often to focus on the message and not the messenger, but I understand that it's important for people, especially when they meet me in person, to see that it is possible to lead a life filled with the principles in the book without having to live in a monastery somewhere. That's why I'm not in a monastery. So a day in the life, it does include a morning sit. It does include healthy, mindful eating. It does include a lot of time in silence. And it definitely includes a whole lot of gratitude with every meal, with every hike, with every star-filled night. There's so much gratitude for being alive. You know, it's an incredible gift, and we don't have it guaranteed. And so I'm quite grateful for every moment. And so a day in the life of me does include me being quite ecstatic quite a bit, and it doesn't take much. So I'm not very, I don't have a lot of stimuli around me, especially where I am now, and that's enough. I think there's plenty to be grateful for without there needing to be so much coming at me at all times. So without getting into too much detail about what my breakfast looks like, I will stick to, it's a life where I take inventory of everything in my day, of everything on my plate, of everyone in my life, all the activities that I have to do throughout the day, and I take inventory of it and ask if it's beneficial to the state of being I aim to have, which is calm and serene and peaceful. And if it's beneficial, then I do it, and if it's not, then I don't. But it's a constant practice. It's not like I make a decision one time, create a recipe, and follow it every day. It's about constantly taking inventory of what my schedule looks like, what my day looks like, and whether that is in line with the kind of life I want to lead. And that answers my question. So I hope it answers yours. I'm glad the answer about Fight Club worked. The name of the new book is Faithfully Religionless. And Faithfully Religionless, I think it perfectly encapsulates my journey from faithless religion to being faithfully religionless. I do believe it's possible to have a tremendous amount of faith without subscribing to any one sect or organized religion. Wow, Holland, Byron Bay, France. I don't have any plans to come to France yet, mainly because the book was not translated to French, and so I don't know what my audience there is like, but one of my really good friends lives in Toulouse, which is one of my favorite places. So if it comes about, I will be more than happy to return to France, where my uncle and 2 cousins actually live as well. So they're in Nice and Marseille. So it's very possible. Derek, you're very welcome. This is why I'm here. Do you think it's okay to act on what our heart feels immediately? Ooh, feelings are not facts. And so do I think that it's okay to act on what our heart feels immediately? The fact that you added the word immediately definitely implies that you're not acting, you're reacting. And so my invitation is always to introduce a gap between impulse and action. So when you feel something, honor it, feel it, contemplate where it's coming from, what's really being triggered. And at no point, regardless of where it's coming from, is it beneficial for our actions to convey what isn't true in our hearts, so to speak. So, you know, I talk a lot about the difference between feelings and emotions, and feelings are perfectly natural, and it's totally okay to feel anything that's going on, from anger to resentment to joy to jealousy, and feel it and honor the fact that it's extremely temporary, and that feeling is going to pass and another feeling is going to take its place. But your question was very specific. Is it okay to act in what our heart feels immediately? I can't say whether it's okay or not. You'll see what the results are, and you'll figure out whether those are the results you want to have. So if you find that doing so on a regular basis, an habitual pattern of doing so gets you into trouble, or actually, in hindsight, if you had taken a moment to take a breath and actually tone down your reaction, by actually having a calculated action, then by all means introduce that gap. But if that kind of spur of the moment, reactionary, knee-jerk response to life is what works for you, then there's your answer. I can't make that decision for you. For me personally, I have found that taking a time out, whether it be a deep breath or just a meditation, or just taking sometimes an entire day to make a decision about something that we think there's like the implied pressure to make a decision right away. Nothing is that urgent. And we can, especially with matters of the heart, which is what I think you're referring to, Karina. I appreciate the question, and I hope I answered it. Have I considered holding an actual retreat or a Buddhist boot camp that people can attend? Sherry Kelly, yes, I have considered that, and I've hosted Buddhist Boot Camp events, obviously, that people have attended, anywhere from 20 people to 300, all of us together for an actual discussion in a group. I have not hosted an actual retreat, including an overnight stay. I do hope to do so one day as part of another retreat. What I mean is have a retreat where there's yoga, there is nutrition information, there's meditation, there are these discussions, there's an opportunity for us to dive deep. I would be more than happy to do that. I personally, individually, don't have the resources or the space where to do this, but I'm very open to finding an existing retreat that's taking place where they can incorporate a day of Buddhist boot camp or just kind of like an underlying theme of it in there somewhere. So Sherry, I'm glad you're interested. I am as well, and I think it's extremely beneficial to incorporate not just a week of silence or a week of yoga or a week of diet, but all of them together so we can come out of it with so many more tools in our toolbox than just one. Because when you throw a lot of information at someone, not everything is going to stick. And so it's, I think, beneficial to cover as many bases as possible, and something inevitably will stay. Is vegetarianism a requirement of Buddhism? Absolutely not. Thank you for that question. No. The invitation in Buddhism, as it is with every religion, with Buddhism, the precept says that as we are aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, we vow not to kill, not to allow others to kill, and not to condone the act of killing in our way of life through our thoughts or our actions. And every person, depending on where they are in their life, takes that invitation to mean different things. It's no different than the commandment that says thou shalt not kill. It's not very specific. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill a human being. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill animal. It just says thou shalt not kill, and we each take it to mean what we are ready for it to mean at this point in our lives. And I wasn't always vegan, nor do I think being vegan is a requirement. It's definitely not a requirement of Buddhism. The Dalai Lama himself eats meat. There are no rules. If that's what's beautiful about Buddhism. It's not a rigid, restricted religion. It is an invitation to be living in line with your values. And that's the beauty, is that you're invited to create your own list of core values and live in line with them. And so if to you, thou shalt not kill, or vowing not to condone the act of killing through your thoughts, words, and actions means to eat a plant-based diet, then yes. But if you decide to eat meat, does it make you less of a Buddhist? Absolutely not. It's really not important to be called a Buddhist. It's not about being a Buddhist. It's about being Buddha-like. And as some of you may or may not know, the Buddha died from eating a piece of pork that happened to not be good. So there are no rules. I hope that answers your question. Is it possible to be, again, to be a Buddhist without getting involved with all the cultural add-ons, the incense, the chanting? Yes, absolutely. Again, I invite you, again, to take a step back away from wanting to be a Buddhist, to be Buddha-like. It's not about chanting. It's not about the incense. These are all tools with which we can strengthen our faith, our tradition, our way of being, our reminders to what our intentions are. Are they necessary? Absolutely not. I personally do not chant. My practice is very quiet. It's very silent. And I appreciate silence way more than I do the chanting or the drumming, if you're into that. Every culture has introduced something else to the school of thought that they practice, but there is no requirement. I hope that answers your question, George. And share, oh, sorry. I'm trying to go through the questions, and someone offered to translate the book. Yes, please contact me if you can translate the book to French. Then by all means, we can make it happen, and the book will be available. It's really that easy. Just contact me. The way to contact me is through the Buddhist Boot Camp website. There's a contact page with information on how to write to me, and we'll make it happen. Sherry, sounds like Becky is already willing to come with us. We have someone here, Jordan from Canada. Aloha. Let's see, what's one thing I can do today to become a better version of myself? Write out a description of the better version of yourself, compare it to the person you are now, and you'll see what you can do to become a better version of yourself. You kind of answered your own question. Have I been to Mammoth Lakes? Yes, I went a couple of weeks ago. It's about 2 hours away from me, and you're right, it's absolutely beautiful. Let's see. Brentwood, Essex, United Kingdom, thank you. Aloha. I tried to schedule this broadcast during a time when everyone is somewhat available, without it being the middle of the night for anybody. I understand that for some of you it's really late, for some of you it's really early, and for some of you it's right in the middle of the day. But I think this works out really well. Thank you, Sherry. Again, I appreciate the feedback, and hopefully this can materialize at some point. Let's see. I'm having trouble accepting. Jesse, this is a really good question. Thank you for bringing this up. I understand that some of you may not see everybody else's questions. From what I can tell from looking on here, YouTube flags some messages as spam or blacklisted, and I can see them, but you guys can't. And so far, there aren't any trolls on here, so all the questions are valid. It's just there's a lot of them, and I'm trying to sort through them. Jesse's question said that he recently received a phone call from a family member who's been fighting brain tumors for years and just got into a car accident. And he understands the idea of fairness doesn't exist in nature, but having a hard time accepting their pain, any clarity. And I think it's really hard for us to understand somebody else's pain, or for us to understand somebody else's journey, or why it's necessary for someone to go through what they're going through. These are questions that no one will ever have the answers to. Why do some children die at the age of 3? Why is someone battling brain tumors for many years? Why is someone who you would deem not a good person have perfect health? Why does someone who smoked for 2 years die of lung cancer, and someone who's been smoking for 80 years is still smoking and have good health? There are no answers to these questions. I think you're creating a lot more turmoil and misery within by trying to reason with nature or with God or whatever you believe in, trying to find a logical explanation for it. We don't know that what they're going through is the end all be all, that it's the worst thing possible, that it's the worst situation possible. We can't pretend to know what it's like for them. And I recently visited someone in the hospital who was told he was only going to live until he was 3 years old. And he was 18 when I saw him, and he struggled with so many different diseases and so many surgeries, and he spent more time at the hospital than he has at home. But he's 18 years old, and when I saw him, he had just gone through surgery, and he lifted up his shirt, and he had this scar that completely cut open. And interestingly enough, he said that he refused to take painkillers. And I asked him why. And he said that if he takes painkillers, it'll mask his pain. And how will he ever know when the pain subsides if he keeps masking it? And when he's not on painkillers and the pain does drop from level 8 to level 7, he has a reason to celebrate. He has a reason to be happy. And so I think that's a really good invitation and feedback for all of us who find ways to mask our pain, to drown our sorrows. We run away from it. And by doing that, especially by getting into the habitual tendency of doing that, how will we ever know when the pain subsides? And so for you to try to take on their pain, to you accepting their pain, it's not your pain to accept, if that makes any sense. It's an interesting conversation to have while trying to avoid words like faith and trust in God, but I'm going to do so anyway, because having faith in God means having faith in her timing as well, or his timing, and just understanding, having trust that even if we believe there's a reason for everything or not, it's irrelevant. We will never know it. We just have to trust that this is just what's happening right now. This is what they need to go through. And we've all seen and witnessed people who are, by other people's definition, less fortunate. But when you ask them, they're as happy as can be. They're totally okay with their situation. They don't see themselves as challenged or disabled at all. It's we who project that onto them. And again, I'm not suggesting that you're projecting pain onto this person who obviously just got into an accident, has brain tumors. This is definitely a challenging situation. I'm not in any way nullifying the severity of it. But as far as where your focus goes, I think it's such an incredible gift to have been born in the first place, to be alive today. And it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Detrimental to focus on the challenges. Elena just said that sometimes the terrible things, quote unquote, that happen bring with them the greatest gifts and blessings. And I think that's really true. Elena said that she had an aneurysm in 2012 that changed everything in her life. And today she's grateful for having had an aneurysm in 2012. Thank you, Elena, for rescuing me there, because, my closest experience isn't an ailment as such. It was the result of something stupid, as jumping off a cliff into the ocean, and I had a near drowning incident, and I survived, and I had broken bones, I was bleeding, And I was ecstatic. And the reason for that is the focus was on the fact that I'm still here. And so, as the case is with Elena, I'm hoping, Jesse, that it's not for you to decide what your family member is going to take from this experience, because there's no way to know. They may look back on it. My sister, same thing, was drunk and she got hit by a car crossing the street. And she broke both legs, smashed her face against the windshield. But that incident led to a closer look at alcoholism, a closer look at situations in her life. And that actually led to her, interestingly enough, going to rehab, going to AA, and then meeting her husband at AA. And now they're married and have a kid. So it's not for us to look at someone else's situation and judge them. I hope that makes any sense. And George says that if we're happy all the time, we could never appreciate it. I'm pretty happy all the time, just because there's so many different reasons to be happy. So I think being happy is not like a static state of being, but rather it takes different shapes and forms continually. So it's not, maybe the word happy is just too general, George. I think that's the problem, is that it's too much of a big umbrella to put under it, because it takes different forms in different ways. Clara asked how to implement mindfulness techniques or meditation practice in our busy daily lives. You know the quote that if, what is it? Meditate for 20 minutes a day. If you don't have time, meditate for an hour. The idea is to bring, oh, Jesse, I'm glad that answer worked for you. The idea of mindfulness is to bring that level of awareness to everything that we do. And it doesn't matter if your life is super busy or not. You can lead a very simple and uncomplicated life without being mindful at all. But mindfulness can be brought to the way you brush your teeth, the way you drink water, the way you prepare your food, the way you eat your food, the way you drive the car. Mindfulness can be brought to our daily busy lives by just paying really close attention to the texture, the feel, the taste, the smell of every moment. And, you know, there are different exercises out there that people suggest, that you take your moment of, you know, awareness every time you put the key in the ignition and you're about to leave for work. Like, that action of putting the key into the ignition is your moment to let it go, like a mindfulness bell, and just take it all in. So I think how busy you are or how not busy you are has nothing to do with bringing mindfulness and awareness into your life. It's a conscious effort to pay attention. Really, that's what it's all about. And by that meaning, being attentive. So, and I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a really, you know, I'm trying to hold back from sharing my own mindfulness exercises, because you don't need to do what I do. You need to do what raises your own level of awareness. It's not about me, it's about you, and where you feel that you're mindless, bring mindfulness into it. If you're watching mindless TV, there you go. The last question answered my question, thanks, okay. Let's see, sorry guys. The comments are loading and I'm seeing a lot more than you guys are. Last question. Becky brought up a good point. The sadness is part of life. It ebbs and flows. And I think that's when I say I'm happy all the time, I don't mean I'm always in a good mood. And so there is this underlying contentment, which is a really good way to say it, is yes, I'm absolutely happy and grateful. And I think gratitude is that really key to happiness, is if we bring a level of gratitude to everything in life, gratitude for YouTube, gratitude for Google, and and internet connection, and out here in the middle of nowhere, it's all very possible. So I think so long as we have gratitude, we can have joy. And the sadness, the misery, the pain that Jesse was talking about comes from a lack of gratitude, comes from, and it's not necessarily a lack of, it's just a focal point. It's just about moving our focus from one thing to the next. This is a long one. Hold on one moment while I read it. It was flagged by YouTube for whatever reason. I don't understand their reason for their the flagging. This question came from, oh, Clara. Good. I'm glad that it makes sense. This question came from someone who recently was certified as a yoga instructor and yet isn't confident enough to practice it, to lead other people in the yoga practice. They lack the confidence or the motivation or the believing in themselves to actually lead a class in the yoga practice. And of course, I think this applies to, you know, what we're doing here. My faith, my trust is not in me and my ability, nor would a yoga instructor put their faith, their trust, and their confidence in their own ability, but in the practice of yoga. My faith is in the message. I believe in it so much that relaying it, though sometimes difficult because I'm trying to articulate it in a way that's understandable, but there's, you know, I have a friend staying with me for a week, and he asked if I was nervous about today's chat, and I'm never nervous before a talk, not anymore. The very first time I ever gave a public talk was the TED Talk that you can watch on BuddhistBootCamp.com. And you can tell I'm close to tears. I'm extremely nervous. I've never spoken in front of an audience before, and I think it's actually a cruel joke that the first time I had to do so was on the TED stage, which is extremely intimidating. But the problem with that is that I was talking at people rather than with people. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a discussion. I was trying to convey something that I didn't quite know how to do yet. And from that moment on, if you've been to any of my book talks, we always sit in a circle. We always try to make it as inclusive as possible. So for the yoga instructor who asked, you know, whether I also am challenged by not feeling like I have the confidence or the ability to do the work, my trust, my faith, my belief is not in my ability, but in the message. And as a yoga instructor, if you believe in yoga and its healing qualities, you're just a translator. This is not coming from you. Yoga is not yours. And so it has nothing to do with you. And not everyone's going to like a yoga instructor, just like not everyone's going to like a book or anything like that. Yoga is you know, I'm having a really hard time articulating it because, you know, we've all, well, maybe not all, but a lot of us have gone to yoga classes, and the instructor makes a really big difference. And so you can be a great believer in yoga, but not like one instructor over the other. And that has nothing to do, you could be a great instructor. One of my really good friends in Hawaii is a yoga instructor, but I won't take his classes because I don't like his teaching style. Love him as a person, not interested in taking his classes. It's nothing that the yoga instructor asked the question can take personally because there's nothing to do with you. It's like chemistry, you know. Let's compare this to dating. Two people can be a perfect match on paper, but when they meet, there's just no connection. And the same with a therapist, the same with a teacher, the same with a yoga instructor. It just takes a certain amount of chemistry, relatability, and that's why when I get negative feedback or hate mail, which comes quite a bit, I don't take any of it personally. It has nothing to do with me. The message or the deliverance of that message didn't resonate with that person as well as it did with someone else. I'm gonna rewind here for a moment. I believe there was a question. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you. Derek asked if I'm trying to get the book into prisons, but how about rehab centers for ex-cons? We've been helping an organization do that here in Fernandina Beach. Derek, write me a letter. Let me know where to send the books, and then we'll go there. I've been sending books to prisons, rehab centers, veteran support groups, schools, juvenile centers, and after-school programs for kids. So it's not strictly for prisons. The reason I mentioned the prisons is because most correctional facilities do not allow hardcover books into prison cells, and so I actually had HarperCollins print out a very limited edition paperback version of the book. It's for prisons, and so when I did the Kickstarter campaign, if you go to BuddhistBootCamp.com, again on the right side, you'll see contribute to the Books to Prisons program. What that does, I can actually show you right here, I think. Sorry, I'm back. Is we have these books, paperback copies of Buddhist Boot Camp that are not for retail. I can't sell these. They don't even have an ISBN code on the back. These were printed specifically for correctional facilities. The money raised for these books was by you guys. If you go to that link again, you can make a contribution, and it all goes to the printing and distribution of these books to organizations like Derek's. So by all means, write me a letter with an address. Let me know how many books you need, and I will ship the books out to you, Derek, or anyone else who's working with some nonprofit organization, prison, or any support group that can benefit from the message in the book. I get a lot of letters from inmates, and it's making a big difference in a lot of people's lives thanks to you. I can't do any of this myself. This is not me doing it. I appreciate all the gratitude, but all the thank you letters that I get from prisoners ought to be addressed to you, because you guys are the ones who raised the money for it, who made it possible. So thank you so much. I'm gonna try and get caught up again. Holly said that sadness comes from attachment and feeling of ownership. If you believe nothing is yours and everything is a gift, then life will be a little happier. That is absolutely true. Holly, is this whole concept of attachment, getting attached to views, opinions, beliefs, and a sense of ownership, that this is mine, and a sense of entitlement. That's causing our suffering, because we end up in this vicious cycle of all we want is one more. So my invitation is to redefine what enough means to us, and by doing that, we'll find out that we actually have plenty of it. That's an interesting question. Thank you for the wisdom. Why do so many, even non-ordained monks and minimalists, keep their hair super short? By the way, I think it suits you. It's I think part of leading a simple and uncomplicated life, and the focus is okay. Different answers for different scenarios, and I know that in the monastery it made perfect sense, because we all wore the same clothes, we all had the same haircut, and so when you're walking up the path to the meditation hall, you don't even know who's in front of you. It doesn't matter. We're all one. We're all the same. We all look, and that it strips that sense of individuality and separateness, in that we're all one. We're all there with the same intention, and I think that's really beautiful in the set of a monastery, because there is no self to cling to, and I love that. So that's one aspect of it. There's also, for me, it's just a simple aspect that okay, many years ago when I was dating, I know that I perhaps look a little better with hair, but I didn't want to be with someone who simply found me attractive based on the exterior. And so, I recently posted something about this on Facebook too, that I used to work out and lift weights and all that stuff. And then I would get really upset because I only attracted people who liked me for my body. And I was like, what about my intelligence? And nobody cared about that. And then I thought, well, look what you're selling. So I think it's in a way even to perhaps be a little less attractive. So maybe the genuine attraction is to what's within, not without. That's another aspect of it. But for me, to answer your question, it's really about minimalism. This is simple. I do this once a week and I'm good. It's a very easy, I think about the amount of money I'm saving on barbers and hair gels and beyond that. When I did the video that's available on YouTube on minimalism, think about how much time I'm saving by eliminating having to worry about my hair in the morning. Think about, I have 5 shirts. They're all like this. They'll look exactly the same. I never have to open the closet and go, which shirt am I going to wear today? I am a big fan of making a decision that makes future decisions for me. And whether it be the decision to be vegan, which automatically eliminates certain things from my diet, so I'm never stuck with not sure what to do. It simplifies my life. The haircut simplifies my life. The shirts simplify my life. My intention, again, my core values is to lead a simple and uncomplicated life, and every decision I make is to make that possible. So I'm going to try to move on. I wish there was a pause button. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm feeling somewhat rushed because I suspect perhaps you don't want a moment of silence, like dead air, but I'm going to allow that to happen if that's what it takes, and actually take time to answer rather than try to go through as many questions as possible. Try to actually answer questions deeper. And maybe we can do this again sometime if you'd like, but it's not about the quantity of questions answered, but the quality with which I can answer them. And I hope you can appreciate that rather than perhaps feeling upset that I didn't get to your question. I appreciate your patience very much, and I'm gonna move on. The vulnerability doing TED was endearing. I'm glad you saw it that way. Thank you. You're welcome, Derek. I'm very much looking forward to getting your letter and information. Why don't they allow hardcover books in prisons? Because they can be used as a weapon. And it's not all prisons, just some of them do not allow hardbound books. Someone said, watching Dharma Brothers, which is a wonderful documentary, convinced me that Buddhist Boot Camp is beneficial in any correctional facility and should be part of the education from kindergarten. A few schools are using the book as part of their curriculum. Thank you for that vote of support. And I'm hoping to reach out to more, but again, it's not really up to me, it's up to you guys. And you guys supporting that program makes it possible. Joan said she's helping a suicidal friend and in the process learning about support services available. I gave her your book, and I think your book would be invaluable in psych wards. Thank you, Joan. I do have relationship with some therapists who actually keep the book in the waiting room to be available to anyone who may need it or benefit from it. And so you're absolutely right. It does help reshape, refocus a lot of people's attention to what we can be grateful for and even talk someone off the ledge. So thank you, Joan. Again, I do believe it's possible, but you're doing it. You're the one who gave her the book. That's my hope, is that for every book ordered, at least 4 people read it. I've never done this for money, and trust me, there's not a lot of money in a $10 book. You can order the book directly from Amazon. That's totally fine. You can order it from me. When you order it from the website under the frequently asked questions tab, you decide whether you want to pay the full price for it, which is $14.99. That's what HarperCollins charges for it, or you just cover my cost, which is just $10. That's how much it costs me to order the book. When you take away all of the PayPal fees and the shipping fees and all that stuff, I'm not trying to make a profit. My hope is that this resonates with other people, and that when you're done reading it, you share it with someone else. Don't keep it to yourself. Or if you're in a position with Joan, just pass it on to someone else, or get them their own copy, or whatever you deem as a good fit for it. I appreciate it. How do you start getting past that attachment of wanting more? How do you redefine your version of enough when the world is geared toward telling you that you never have enough? Well, I believe it's Alana or Helen. Well, first of all, stop listening to what the world is telling you. It's their intention that the messages you're referring to about the world telling you that you never have enough, they're marketers. They want to sell you more stuff. It's in their best interest to convince you that you don't have enough, so you go out and get it. The first step I did to answer your question, how do I start getting past that attachment, is to turn that off. Just steer clear of that media, of that constant message, which isn't true, that we don't have enough. We have plenty. We live in abundance, and we are extremely fortunate. So there's a lot that we can benefit from traveling, from experiencing different cultures, seeing how little people live with elsewhere in the world, and how fortunate we are to be where we are. And the best thing, again, I'm going to keep saying this, is gratitude. When you make a list of everything in your life that you're grateful for, you'll see how much you have, and you'll be like, not only do I have enough, I have more than enough. And that's your key to living in abundance. I hope that answers your question. Jordan, I really appreciate your question about anxiety. I would love to answer that question. I think it will take up a lot of time. And so what I'm going to do is record a separate video that isn't live to answer that question specifically. In fact, I'm going to do a screenshot right now, and I'm going to answer your question in a separate video. And I hope that's okay. Just if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, I believe you're notified when a new video is uploaded. I'm not sure. If not, I'll include it in the next monthly update. I send out one email every month. Again, BuddhistBootCamp.com. There's on the right side a place for you to put in your name and your email address. And you'll only receive one email a month from me, and I'll include in it links to videos, questions, new information, and whatnot. Just be sure to follow the instructions about adding that email address to your address book. Otherwise, that email could end up in your spam folder, and you'll never see it. Sherry had an interesting question. I'm trying to wrap my mind around. I find that my values restrict my access to many things, and as such, find alternatives. My friends say that I'm silly. How can I share my beliefs without appearing to judge? I'm not really sure what your question is on the whole is, Sherry, but to answer that last part, how can you share your beliefs without appearing to judge? Don't share your beliefs unless someone asks you what they are. The first rule of, I was going to say the first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The first step is you don't, unless someone asks you, don't push your beliefs on anybody else. If someone asks, you can say, this is my choice, it's my option. I'm choosing this because when I tried something else, it didn't quite work for me like it does for others. This is what works for me. But it's really important to take it on yourself without implying in any way that this is something everyone should do. The world would be a better place if everyone did this. We don't know that. So it's really about just owning our own decisions. And if it appears that you're judging, it's possible that you actually are. So again, don't share your beliefs unless someone asks you what they are. Just your life is your message. The way you live your life is communicating to the world what your beliefs are. And as Gandhi said, your actions convey your priorities. Think about that. I'm reading How long will this chat last? Not much longer. I'm trying hard to be mindful and compassionate in my daily life, and although I'm making progress, I still cannot stop the physical effects that anxiety and frustration has on my body. Do these feelings fade with practice? Denise, I will answer that question in that video as well about anxiety instead of live on here. I'm going to try to maybe keep it to just an hour, which gives us about 5 more minutes. Thank you, Patricia, for your patience. I love your statement. How is that working for you? Yes, that's Elena, that's a really important tool, is to take inventory and go, okay, this is how I lead my life. This is what I eat for breakfast. This is what I eat for lunch. This is what I eat for dinner. This is what I do for exercise. This is what I do to get enough sleep. This is what I do for my relaxations. Whatever it is, look at your life and go, how's that working out for me? But just because we've done something a certain way all the time, that does not, it's not necessarily the answer. Just reevaluate. How's that working out for you? If it's not working out for you, stop. So how do I learn to let go of anger and frustration? Oh, Lauren, how do I learn to let go of anger and frustration? First is to acknowledge that feeling as it arises. I have a really good friend who practices naming her demons, so to speak. So if you get angry frequently, give your anger a name. Give her an A name like Angela, and give your frustration an F name like Fred. And so when you feel anger arise, you see it, you acknowledge it, saying, I see you, because it's within your control. And then it's not about not feeling the anger. So that's totally normal. Feel the anger. It's about not acting out of anger. So you acknowledge it and say, I see you, but I've also made a commitment not to live a life filled with anger, and so I'm not going to act on that behalf. Because we're running shorter on time, Lauren, I'm going to answer that question in a separate video as well. I'm going to do a separate video on anger and frustration. Hope that works out for you. Again, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll find out about it. Did I just see tattoos on your wrist? Yes, you did. I have the Eye of Horus and Om. I've got a lot of them. There's a chapter in the book about the tattoos on my body. Did you say you have a new book? Is it out? No, it's not out yet. It's being written as we speak. A lot of these are being blocked. I apologize for that. It's a YouTube setting that I'm not sure how to get around. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. I thank you so much for your time today. This was a really great turnout. And I did not know what to expect. I've never done this before, but leave your comments below the video once it's uploaded, and let me know if you want to see more of this. If you want to do this on a regular schedule, like the last Saturday of every month, or maybe every week, it's totally up to you. Let me know, and we can go from there. If you have questions you want me to answer, not live, but in a separate video, as I've been doing, again, go to BuddhistBootCamp.com, and under contact, there's information on where to send your letters. The reason there isn't an email address to do so is because I would just end up with thousands of emails. Thank you guys so much for your time, and especially for